Hey, this is Sasha, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Stocks. In today's episode, we're going to go back to the basics of looking at technical analysis on a flag pattern. So let's take a look at the bullish and the bearish case scenario. This pattern is a continuation pattern, which means you're continuing into the direction that you left from or came from. If we look at a basic flag pattern and we're looking at the bullish case scenario, the flag pattern, think of it as a digestion pattern. That's why it's continuation. It pauses, digests, and then continues moving forward into that same direction. So when we look at this, there's a couple of different variations. We'll do the bullish, the bearish, and a kind of a sideways pattern. So if you look at just the movement that we have in the bullish case scenario, we're going from lower prices, and then what happens is these prices eventually stall out, and then you kind of go a little bit sideways to a retracement. So it creates somewhat of a retracement pattern here for a short bit of time. Okay, so here you're consolidating in this little range. Okay, and then eventually this will break back out and move into higher prices. So your flag really is right here. It's that pullback segment. I'll talk a little bit more about the tips here as we get into this flag pattern, but the angle could be a little bit different. So when we look at the previous trend, with flag patterns, the previous trend is always moving in the direction that it's following through. So basically, if you're moving to the upside, you get a flag pattern, then you'll continue moving to the upside. If you're in a bearish case scenario, let's say you're moving to the downside, okay, so we're moving kind of lower, we'll retrace. Let's just draw this retracement kind of this way. It goes back to that side, right? This is that retracement, and then it'll continue heading kind of lower. So you can see the flag pattern here is going back up to retrace on the bearish segment, whereas on the bullish segment, it's pulling back a little bit. If we look at the volume for this, typically you'll have greater volume where that stock is moving to the direction that it's heading in. So on a bullish case, we have high volume in the initial breakout, and then you'll have kind of lighter volume when you're distributing or moving sideways. Usually this is the case. And then eventually, again, you'll get some more higher, heavier volume moving back to the upside. So that's usually what you're looking for when it comes to volume, is you want an increase in volume in the direction that the stock is moving in. They usually go hand in hand. As far as the projection goes, if I go ahead and take my hand and we moved about, let's just say, a hand span from the initial breakout to the top of this flag pattern, that's what you'll probably get as well from that breakout point all the way to kind of the top. Okay, so that would be maybe your target area somewhere up high over there. That's usually a projection, but keep in mind, if you're looking at bullish patterns, sometimes they could continue moving for much longer, creating new digestion patterns, and then again moving into further higher prices. As far as the pattern is concerned, that's typically the projection is from the initial breakout to the top of the flag, you'll probably get that next leg again to the upside. Sometimes it'll be a little bit less because this pattern just gets so far extended with the amount of energy and movement, since this is a much shorter compression, much shorter retracement. And if it had a longer retracement, you could move much longer to the upside, but it may not be as quick. And then finally, some entry points. If we're looking at entry points, you'll want to do it right after we break out of the flag pattern if you miss the flag pattern. Of course, initially it'd be nice to get in way at earlier prices, but that doesn't always work out. In some certain situations, if you get kind of a pullback in that flag pattern and then you move higher to bounce off of the support or resistance, you could go and do an entry point kind of over there as well. So that could be another variation. So one or two little tips here before we go into a little more detail on the bearish side is that this pattern can actually also look, let me just show you, can move even more sideways. Okay, so if we move sideways, it can go sideways, and that could work the same for the bear case scenario as well. So if we're moving to the bear case you're moving sideways and then further lower prices. So that could also be a sideways looking flag pattern. So just keep that in mind, that it doesn't necessarily have to retrace or pull back at this angle. It could be a little more sideways as well. It's just digesting the move that was created that was very quick. If we're looking at the bearish case, again, you'll want heavier volume as that stock is selling off, simply because that's where the stock is moving the quickest, right? Then you'll get a little bit of light volume as we're digesting, and again, heavier volume on the next leg down. If you're looking for an entry point, of course, the entry point will be right where that stock breaks that supporting flag pattern. Sometimes it'll retrace and bounce up and then go down, and that could also be an entry point as well. So that's kind of the flag pattern as far as the basics are concerned. Keep in mind, sometimes these things, if they're moving a little more sideways and you think of them like a flag pattern, it could be a double top, it could be a double bottom. It's just distribution. All this is it's a pausing pattern to the next stage. And that's why when you're looking to get into the stock, you want to wait till it breaks out of that pattern if you miss the initial move. Could you do it a little bit earlier and get into the stock and the position earlier? Yeah, absolutely, you could do that, but then of course you're risking for it to continue moving in a downward direction if you're looking at a bullish case scenario. Or in a bearish case, if you're looking for, of course this would be a short entry. If you're looking to short the stock and it continues moving higher and just reverses, and this becomes a double kind of bottom in a way, then it could really hurt you and damage you as well. But overall, that's kind of the flag pattern and what you're looking for getting in and out of that position. So welcome to the screen, and here what I'd like to do is show you an example of a flag pattern. This could almost be a pennant pattern as well. But here, take a look at this GoPro example. And as we look at the chart, the GoPro IPO got released right here. So this was our early initial point. We kind of had a double top right at this point. And then as that stock continued to climb up, you can see we accelerated very quickly with quite a bit of volume. Now here's where our flag pattern takes place right here. And if you look, there it is, it's flagging a little bit. During that flag pattern, we do have a little decrease in volume. And then as soon as we break out of that flag pattern, you have an increase in volume. So your entry point would be just right above that flag pattern. You could almost wait until even the top of that flag pattern is cleared to get into the stock. And you can see you had a nice run a little bit forward into higher prices with this example. If we take a look at the next example, here's another one with Tesla as a little bit of a flag pattern. So again, take a look. We had a run up here in prices. Stock pulled back here slightly. You could see a slight little pullback and retracement. And then again, a nice pop in higher prices breaking out of that flag. You can see volume slowly starting to build. Overall, it was just starting to build. So it's a little less obvious there on the volume with Tesla here. But nevertheless, there was that slight little consolidation flag pattern that occurred. And during the breakout, we did have a little more volume. So that's kind of a basic flag pattern example. I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for joining me, and be sure to get on the newsletter list so that way you get notified as I release new videos. When we have new books and courses that get released, get on the newsletter list right here so that way you can get promotions, discounts, and all the other good stuff that comes along with being a newsletter subscriber. Now, if you just want to hang out on YouTube and get notified through YouTube when we release new videos, then just hit the face right here, the circle, and you'll get notified as new videos are released on YouTube. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.